The hidden dangers of Bill C-2, a wake-up call for Canadians. Hey Canada, we've got a serious issue on our hands. The Liberal government's pushing Bill C-2, a massive 139-page border security bill that, at first glance, sounds like it's tackling big problems: fentanyl trafficking, organized crime, and loopholes for asylum seekers. Those are real concerns, and I think most of us would agree they need to be addressed. But here's the thing. This bill isn't just about keeping our borders safe. Dig a little deeper and you'll see it's packed with measures that expand government surveillance, tighten control over your life, and chip away at your freedoms. This isn't some wild conspiracy. It's right there in the text of the bill. We've got to wake up, understand what's at stake, and take action before it's too late. I'm going to break down the most troubling parts of Bill C-2 in plain, everyday language, explain why they matter, and urge every single one of you to pay attention. The Liberals are banking on you skimming the headlines and not digging into the details. Let's not let them get away with it. Oh, and before we dive in, if you're finding this helpful, it'd mean a lot if you could hit that like button and subscribe to support us. Let's spread the word together. A surveillance state in disguise. Alright, let's start with the big one. Bill C-2 hands the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, and other federal agencies some pretty scary powers to snoop into your private life. Right now, if the government wants to listen to your phone calls, read your emails, or check your texts, they usually need a court warrant. A judge has to look at the evidence and say, yeah, there's a good reason for this. But Bill C-2 flips that on its head. It lets CSIS and others peek into your digital communications, your emails, your messages, all of it, without ever going to a judge. No oversight, no checks, just a free pass to dig through your digital world. And it gets worse. The bill also allows these agencies to open and search your physical mail if they're looking into a crime. Picture this: a government agent rifling through your letters or packages, and you don't even know it's happening. No judge signed off on it, and they don't have to tell you. This isn't just about catching drug traffickers or terrorists. It's about giving the government the power to invade your privacy whenever they feel like it. Why should this worry you? Because privacy is the backbone of freedom. When the government can track your every move, your emails, your texts, your mail, without having to justify it, you lose the ability to live without that constant fear of being watched. The Liberals are pitching this as a way to fight crime. But let's be real, this is a huge overreach that could target regular Canadians, not just the bad guys. Turning businesses into government spies. Bill C-2 doesn't stop at personal surveillance. It drags private businesses into the mix too. The Canadian Border Services Agency, or CBSA, is getting new powers to inspect containers leaving the country. On the surface, that sounds fair enough, right? Gotta stop smugglers and all that. But here's the kicker: the bill forces transportation companies, warehouses, and logistics firms to give CBSA agents full access to their facilities. If you run a trucking company or own a warehouse, you're basically being drafted into the government's surveillance network. Say no, you're looking at penalties. So, businesses involved in cross-border trade, whether they're huge corporations or small family operations, are now expected to do the government's bidding. They've got to open their doors, hand over records, and let CBSA agents poke around whenever they want. This isn't just about catching smugglers. It's about turning private companies into extensions of the government's surveillance system. For small business owners, this could mean extra costs, more headaches, and the constant threat of government interference hanging over them. For the rest of us, this is a red flag. If the government can pressure businesses into handing over data or access, what's stopping them from coming after you next? Your packages, your shipments, your business dealings. Everything could be under the microscope, not because you did something wrong, but because the government now has the power to demand it. Militarizing the Coast Guard. Let's talk about the Canadian Coast Guard. It's always been a civilian agency focused on things like search and rescue, protecting the environment, and keeping our waters safe. But Bill C-2 changes that in a big way. It gives the Coast Guard a shiny new national security role, letting them share information directly with military and intelligence agencies like CSIS. That's a huge shift, turning a civilian service into something that feels a lot more like a military force. The government hasn't said whether Coast Guard ships will start carrying weapons, but the direction they're heading is pretty clear. They're building a militarized fleet. This isn't about saving stranded boaters anymore. It's about giving the government another way to monitor and control Canada's waters, and maybe even its people. When a civilian agency starts sharing data with the military, The line between your everyday life and government surveillance gets blurry real fast. Why does this matter to you? It's another step toward making government overreach feel normal. The Coast Guard isn't just patrolling for smugglers, it's being woven into a bigger surveillance and control network. If you live near the coast, own a boat, or depend on maritime trade, this could hit you directly. And even if you don't, it's a sign of how far the Liberals are willing to go to expand their grip. Criminalizing cash and controlling your money. Now, here's one of the most jaw-dropping parts of Bill C-2. It's coming after cash. The bill bans cash transactions over $10,000, making it illegal for individuals, businesses, or even charities to accept or make large cash payments. The government says this is about stopping money laundering and terrorist financing. But hold on, Canada already has tough laws for that. This isn't about crime, it's about control. Cash is private, it's untraceable. It lets you buy things without the government knowing every detail of your life. Want to buy a used car for $12,000 in cash? Or maybe a charity wants to accept a big cash donation? Under Bill C-2, that'd be a crime. The penalties are harsh, both civil and criminal, and they apply to everyone, from small business owners to regular folks like you and me. Why is this a problem? Because cash equals freedom. When the government limits how you can use it, they're pushing you toward digital payment systems, credit cards, bank accounts, apps that they can track. Every purchase, every dollar you spend, leaves a digital trail that the government can follow. Remember the trucker protests back in 2022? The government froze bank accounts without a second thought. With cash restricted, they'll have even more power to control your money and your life. Forcing tech companies to build backdoors. If you're online, and let's face it, who isn't? Bill C-2 should make you nervous. The bill forces every company offering electronic services in Canada, think social media, messaging apps, banking apps, cloud storage, to redesign their systems so the government can easily access your data. They'll have to build what's basically a backdoor into their platforms, ready to hand over your info whenever the government asks. And in many cases, they won't even need a warrant. That means your private messages, your photos, your financial transactions, even your browsing history could be accessed by the government without you knowing or agreeing to it. The Liberals say this is about catching criminals, but the scope is way broader. These powers apply to any offense under any federal law, not just border security or major crimes. A vague suspicion is all they need. Michael Geist, a well-respected internet privacy expert from the University of Ottawa, calls this a poison pill in the bill. He says it violates Canadians' right to privacy, backed up by a 2014 Supreme Court ruling that says we have a reasonable expectation of privacy online. By ignoring that, the Liberals are setting the stage for legal battles. And worse, a surveillance state where nobody's data is safe. The Immigration Smokescreen. To be fair, Bill C-2 does have some measures that make sense. Tightening asylum loopholes and fixing gaps in the Safe Third Country Agreement are things a lot of Canadians support. Those changes could help manage the flow of asylum seekers and make sure the system isn't being abused. But here's the catch. Those provisions are just a small piece of the puzzle, and they're being used as a cover to slip in all these surveillance and control measures. The bill also gives the government broad powers to cancel entire categories of immigration applications for vague reasons like public health or national security. That might sound reasonable, but it's so loosely defined it could be abused. Who gets to decide what's a national security threat? Without clear boundaries, this could be used to target specific groups or silence people who disagree with the government, all under the guise of protecting Canada. The Liberals are hoping you'll focus on these immigration fixes and miss the bigger picture. Don't fall for it. The real story here isn't about borders, it's about power, a pattern of deception. This isn't the first time the Liberals have tried to pull something like this. Bill C-2 follows in the footsteps of Bill C-63, another law that raised alarms for its potential to censor free speech online. Together, these bills are starting to look like what some folks are calling a censorship Voltron, a system where the government can monitor, control, and punish you for what you say, what you spend, and how you live.
I'm a member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Speaker, if Bill C-2 passes, it would allow CSIS, police, and peace officers to demand personal info from online service providers without a warrant, based only on vague suspicions of potential crime or legal breaches on any act of Parliament. Whether a Canadian uses an online service, where they use it, and when they use it is personal information, and the government has not provided a charter statement for the same. If this bill combined with Bill C-63, the government could target whatever the government deems to be spreading hateful content, and it would combine with C63 basically to essentially form censorship Voltron. The government has not indicated what policy concerns, aside from vague references to security, these provisions are needed for. These snooping provisions are a massive poison pill that shouldn't have been included in this bill. Why, once again, as they did with C63, are the Liberals making Canadians choose between their civil liberties and their safety, and also fixing the broken immigration system that the Liberals broke themselves?
Minister of Public Safety.
The Liberals have a track record of wrapping dangerous policies in feel-good promises. Think back to the trucker protests, when they invoked the Emergencies Act, later ruled unconstitutional, to freeze bank accounts and seize assets. They got away with it then, and now with Bill C2 they're doubling down, using border security as an excuse to tighten their grip. Mark Carney, a big player behind this bill, and his new Principal Secretary David Lametti, who greenlit the trucker crackdowns, are steering Canada toward a future where speaking out could be risky. If you question the government, criticize their policies, or support causes they don't like, you might find your mail opened, your accounts watched, or your cash transactions flagged, all without a warrant. Why this matters to you? You might be thinking, I'm not doing anything wrong, so why should I care? But this bill isn't just about criminals, it's about all of us. If the government can access your data, read your mail, or track your money without any oversight, they can target anyone they want. Conservative MPs, political donors, activists, or just regular people who speak their mind could end up under scrutiny. Even private communications like confidential letters between you and your lawyer aren't clearly protected. The vague wording in the bill is another huge concern. Phrases like reasonable grounds to suspect or public officer are so broad they could mean almost anything. A public officer could even be someone running a military museum. This lack of clarity gives the government room to abuse these powers, and history shows they're not shy about it. Professor Geist warns that these measures are a direct attack on your privacy. They're also a step toward a cashless society where every transaction is traceable, leaving a digital footprint for the government to follow. Combine this with other laws like Bill C63, and you're looking at a future where speaking out or spending money in ways the government doesn't approve could put you at risk. What you can do. The Liberals are counting on us being too busy or distracted to notice what's in Bill C2. They're hoping you'll see border security or fentanyl and think it's all about keeping you safe. But this bill is about control, not protection. It's about building a system where the government can watch your every move, punish you for using cash, and silence you if you step out of line. You can push back. Start by checking out the bill yourself. It's public, though they don't make it easy to find. Share this info with your friends, family, and neighbors. Sign petitions like the one at stopc2.com to demand accountability. Reach out to your member of parliament and tell them to oppose this bill, or at least strip out the surveillance and control measures. Ask for a charter statement explaining how these provisions line up with your constitutional rights. They haven't provided one yet, and that's a big red flag. Time's running out. If Bill C2 passes as is, it'll be the biggest expansion of domestic surveillance powers in decades. Your privacy, your freedom, and your ability to live without the government looking over your shoulder are on the line. The Liberals are hiding the truth in plain sight. Don't let them get away with it. Act now before it's too late. Conclusion: stand up for your rights. Bill C2 is a stark reminder of how easily the government can use crises to chip away at our freedoms. This isn't a one-off, it's part of a bigger push to tighten control over our lives. With sweeping surveillance powers and attacks on cash, we've got to ask ourselves, how much are we willing to give up in the name of safety? Your voice matters. What do you think about the Liberal government's push for laws that seem to violate our charter rights? How do you feel about other concerning bills like C2 or C63 that aim to control Canadians even more? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of informed Canadians. Your support means a lot, and together we can keep our rights front and center. Let's keep this conversation going. Cheers!